Today, you'll learn how to master 5-minute scalping and day trading. I'll show you one of the most magical trading patterns in the world. We'll cover real trading examples that I took recently. We'll talk about ranges, liquidity hunts, imbalances, swing failure patterns, optimal trade entries, and trade management. We have so much to cover. If you are ready, let's start. Welcome our free trading course, all about price action trading strategies and smart money concepts. With this video, I'll cover the basics of scalping and day trading mastery. If you are looking for a structured table of contents, I set it up for you. You can find it on Google Drive or directly from my website, which is in the description. It is important to watch videos in order, so you will not miss anything. Let's remember one of the most important and powerful trading patterns in the world, reverse optimal trade entry, ROTE pattern. Let's check out the bullish pattern first. Reverse optimal trade entry starts with finding the target, and the best target in the world is equal lows and highs. However, this is not a rule. Any proper liquidity like trendline liquidity can be used with ROTE. Then in step 2, you confirm a liquidity hunt. The most basic hunt is the swing failure pattern and considerable swing failure pattern, or any other classic liquidity hunt will do. In step 3, draw your Fibonacci or Gann box tool from target liquidity to hunted liquidity. Then you wait for the price to come back to the premium zone. In the last step, you are waiting for a nice pullback to the classic optimal trade entry zone, which is between 70% and 80%. Then you make your entry and wait for the hunt, your original target liquidity from the step 1. The bearish pattern is exactly the same. I will not go over this again. You can pause the video and check it out. Let's continue with real trade examples that I've taken recently. Today, we'll focus on mastering the 5-minute time frame. I'm a great fan of combining high time frames and low time frames. So, we will still consider high time frame elements and keep checking the left of the chart. Let's see what is happening here. It looks like a mess of price action. I put a simple range here, and it's much clearer now. Let's see what is above and below the range. You can notice the giant imbalance above. And right above it, the mitigation block, the natural supply area. Right at the bottom, we have these amazing equal lows. This is the first step of our reverse optimal trade entry setup, finding a clear target like these equal lows. If we target this, we also need the hunted liquidity. What is hunted liquidity? Fuel for the market maker to push the price in the opposite direction. This downtrend liquidity and thousands of stop losses are good enough liquidity for the market maker. Also, you can see the considerable swing failure pattern right here. Now I draw my Fibonacci tool from target liquidity to the hunted liquidity. This gives me the magical ROTE zone. This is a very common ROTE shape and pattern. This pattern keeps happening every single day in every market and asset classes. Checking this week, we also have our rejection block here. You can easily see that the price is rejected from the midpoint of the rejection block. This was a sweet and easy trade. Clear entry, clear target, clear stop loss. Now, it may look complicated at first, but it's natural. But with regular practice, you'll see them every single day. Let's see another trade. When I was watching this price action, the price really got close to this significant low. Now, if it is too close, I need it to be hunted before I take action against it. With the swing failure pattern in 15 minutes, this low is now taken out. We can now switch to the 15-minute charts. Let's see what is happening here. Not only that mega SFP, it also takes these relatively equal lows and creates another internal SFP. Great. There is also an unfulfilled imbalance from the 14th of February, almost a month. Do you check the left of your chart? Probably not. I check it, and it does not matter 10 years, I still check it. Too much liquidity hunted and imbalance tapped now. I can look for a long trade. I draw my simple range. You know I love ranges and it gives me clarity for my trades. Besides all the price action structures, you can also notice the TT3 pattern, treetop pattern. As I said before, TT3 is like an add-on or plug-in pattern to range trading. It shall not be used alone if there is no range. Everything is great, but where are my targets? Why should I take a long trade if there are no clear targets? Remember this, no target means no trade. You can notice the nice equal highs, and above that, you can also notice the trendline liquidity. So many targets and reasons to go up. Drawing my Fibonacci from target liquidity to hunted liquidity, my reverse entry pattern becomes much better and clear. Gives me an idea of where to enter the trade. As I said, I have two targets here, TP1 and TP2. With the micro SFP in a minute, I see the strong rejection and enter the trade. It clears the equal highs at once, very quickly as I expected. However, it did not reach my possible runner above. So closing this trade around the first target after a while, because it lacks the power and the strength to reach the second target. It is the best to make money and secure profit rather than a loss. Let's talk about the third trade, this time focusing on more trendline liquidity rather than equals. Now, drawing my range first. If you have no idea about range trading, you need to follow my free trading course. I have a great range and the deviation trading section. With the range, everything is already clear. I took this trade right after the second trade. My bias quickly changed due to range and liquidity. Remember this equal high hunt? You can also notice this swing failure pattern and the big rejection wick. This indicates to me that the market finds enough fuel to push the price down now. There's also this nice imbalance right here. Checking other price action structures, you can notice the mitigation block and order block. Strong supply zones. The most important section of our trades is targets. Where is the target? This obviously forming trendline liquidity is my great target. As I said before, ROTE works best with equal highs and lows. But this is not a rule. You can make it work with any kind of liquidity with proper price action. Drawing my Fibonacci from target liquidity to hunted liquidity, my reverse optimal trade entry zone appears, and the magical trading pattern shows itself. Taking this very clear entry. Now you may ask, why do I have a target way below? Remember the imbalance from 1 month ago? Still waiting to be fulfilled. Such a great target to use. If you want to achieve pro-level trading, you have to master checking the left of your chart. Go back 20 years if you must and see what is there. Okay folks, with this video you learned how to master 5-minute scalping and day trading. I hope you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you, please take care and see you soon.